Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Tone Alabi and I share honest advice on relocation, life abroad and starting over in a new country. And I also share other topics based on my experience and my passions and interests. But a lot of what I share is based on my journey moving to Australia. I've been living in Australia now for 18 years. And today's video is all about settling down in a new country, specifically Australia. So now you might be watching me and you might be, I don't know, thinking about making a move to relocate to a new country. It might not be Australia in particular, but it might be some other country. And a lot of the things that I have to say today might translate and might be relevant for you, okay? And before we move ahead, I really want to give you guys a big thank you. Thank you so much for those that have subscribed recently. I can see my subscriber numbers going up and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for that. That means a great deal to me. And one thing I want to encourage you to do is if you like any of my videos, please just give it a like so that it gets out to more people. So whether you're planning on traveling or relocating by yourself or with your family, I've got practical housing tips and things that you might need to consider, and some of them are based on my own experience. One thing that prompted this particular video is that I saw a post written by someone from India, a lady from India. I don't know how old she is, but she was saying that she just got admission to a university here in Australia and she wanted to know if it's safe for her to come by herself and also to know what her options are with accommodation. So definitely it's a very good question to ask, especially if you've never been here before. And I would say, based on my own experience and the experiences of people that are similar to me, is that for the most part, Australia is a safe country. The crime rate is pretty low, but also you just need to always be aware of your surroundings and try to keep safe, okay? So when I first arrived in Australia as a student, I was a student when I arrived here for the very first time, and I stayed in a student accommodation provided by my university. The accommodation there made my transition smoother, I have to say, but that's just one option. And there's not all the universities here in Australia that offer accommodation to students. So you might be enrolled in a university like that. The girl who had posted had enrolled in a university that did not offer accommodation. So you might find yourself in that situation, or you might not be a student when you're moving. So some things that you can consider for the first few weeks or even first few months is short-term stays. So you could get short-term accommodation through places like Airbnb, their service apartments, or even extended stay hotels. This gives you time to explore different suburbs before settling in for the long term. And I think it just is a way of trying to figure out where works for you. You don't want to lock yourself into a rental contract before figuring out whether or not the place or the suburb you are renting is going to work well for you. And obviously, if you're moving in, if you're relocating somewhere for the first time, whether as a student or you've already even got a job, you want somewhere that's in close proximity to your workplace, or somewhere where you know that it's kind of easy to navigate your way to either the workplace or the university or wherever you're going. So rushing into a rental before you know the area can lead to regrets. So here in Australia, there's something for every lifestyle, really. So you have a lot of apartments and units. So these are available apartments in the city. You'll find mainly apartment style accommodation and units in the city. But you'll also find them in the suburbs as well. They're becoming more and more popular for people, especially people that are maybe single, or couples, or people or families that are small in size. So accommodation, apartment style accommodation is a great option in that regards. There are also townhouses, which are perfect for smaller families, and it's a multi-level style accommodation. And I remember that I used to live in a townhouse where the living space was in the middle, so it's usually 3 levels, okay. And the configuration can change. Sometimes it's that the living space is on the 2nd floor and the bedroom is on the 3rd floor, but sometimes it can swap around where the bedroom is on the 2nd floor or the 1st floor and the living space is on the 3rd floor. So townhouses actually are quite a nice, it gives you a little bit of space as a family. And then there's freestanding houses, which offers a lot of space. Most freestanding houses come with like a courtyard or a backyard where you can just, the children can play around more freely. You can have outdoor things, activities. So you'll find more of these types of houses in the outer suburbs, although there are houses also in the inner city and in the city. The other option is the studio apartments, which is like it's all in one space where you have the living space and your bedroom in one space along with the kitchen. And this is great if you're a single person with not that much in terms of your furniture or in terms of the things that you have. So it's a good option for you if you don't have that many things, and if you're a single person. I know that there are couples as well that opt for studio living. The granny flats are also a good one as well, and it's a great option if you are looking for privacy. If you don't want to share, for instance, or if you don't really want a big space, it's a good option for you. So granny flats are a separate dwelling from the main house, and you'll see that granny flats are usually at the back of a main house. I have a friend of mine that actually lives in a granny flat. So the main house is occupied by the family, and she has rented out the granny flat at the back of the main house. And that way it gives her privacy, but it also gives a sense of security, because you know that there are people that live quite close to you, in close proximity to you. So you don't feel completely detached or alone. So that's actually a good option for some people, and it's a good one for if you're on a budget. And of course, there's also the shared housing accommodation, which remains a popular option for students or single newcomers. Of course, I have done shared accommodation in the past while I was studying, and shared accommodation is good if you know that you are happy to live with other people. It's a good one if you're still quite young and you want to still, socialize. It's a good avenue to meet other people, maybe people that you're studying with, or people that are working in similar professions as you are. It's just that with shared housing, you do need to try to do your research, try to vet the housemates that you're going to be living with. You don't want a situation where you're moving with someone that is always bringing people into the house partying, or someone that isn't as tidy as you would like them to be. But shared housing is another option where you can share with 1 or 2 people, or even maybe more than 2 people. And that way it brings down the costs for you. Now, renting can feel overwhelming at first. And I remember that my first inspection to a proper place of my own was quite daunting, and I was a bit nervous because I didn't really have any real rental history. And over here in Australia, they do favor people that have a rental history. But it doesn't mean that you'll be locked out of it if you don't have a rental history in a new place. It just means that you need to be more organized and you need to get ahead of the game. You need to be a bit more proactive. Sometimes there are situations where you can reach out to the agent or landlord and negotiate that instead of paying for just the first month, you'll pay for the first 2 or 3 months. Okay, it shows them that you are quite keen to get the place. So when you're renting or looking to rent a place, you need to put together a few things documentation wise. So if you have a visa, for instance, you can put a copy of your visa. If you're still studying, you put a proof, you bring a proof of enrollment, or if you already have employment, you bring a letter of employment, bank statements, and even a short cover letter explaining who you are and why you want to rent that place in particular. And some other things that you might need to provide are references. Okay, so that's why it's important to also build a network. So they sometimes require you to provide a character reference, or if you're employed, also provide a professional reference. If you're at school, you can also get a reference from like a lecturer or maybe the careers office or something like that. So this will help your application. Now, if you are moving with your family, for instance, if you are relocating with your kids, the priorities will be a bit different. And you'll need to consider a few things, such as if your kids are school-aged kids, then you'll need to look at the school catchment zones. So, for instance, in Australia, if your child is going to be in a public school, you will most likely be you'd have to be living in the same catchment zone as the school. Okay, so you cannot say you want your child to be in a certain public school that's outside of where you are living or outside of the catchment zone. So you'll really need to think about where in particular you want to live based on the schools that are around that area. So it's good to research suburbs and research the ones that are family friendly. Most suburbs here in Melbourne are family friendly, but there are some suburbs that are more family friendly. So don't forget to explore things like proximity to parks, local events, parent support groups. This can really be a game changer for you if you're moving in with your family. One thing that no one tells you enough of is how important community is when you're starting over. So some things that helps me along the way were joining groups, okay, both online and in-person groups. And nowadays there's so many groups you can join. You can join groups via Facebook. I'm in a number of expat groups on Facebook. Even on Meetup, there is a website called Meetup, and depending on where you are and what country you're in, you can look at the communities and groups that are there. Attend library events as well. The library is also a really good place that organizes lots of events and gets you acquainted with the suburb that you're living in. And you get to connect with people that live in that area as well. It makes your new home start to actually feel like home when you know people and you know that you're building a community of like-minded individuals. So the other option is buying a property. So if you're thinking about buying a property in Australia, for instance, in the long term, you have to be aware that as a foreigner, so if you still have a temporary visa, you'll need approval from the Foreign Investment Review Board. As most temporary residents can only buy new properties or one home to live in. But make sure you check to see what the latest rules are. So settling down in a new country takes time. It takes courage and it takes a lot of little decisions, things that you might take for granted now, but when you actually are in the new country, you realize that every little detail counts. But it's worth making that plan. It's worth the planning. So if you're planning your move to Australia or somewhere else, and you're already here, or maybe you're already even here or already in the new country, and you're figuring things out, I'd love to hear from you in the comments section. And also, I've put together a settling down checklist that I've created, and it's linked in the description box below. I also have a blog that I cover, that I write my experiences about settling down in Australia, and it's in the description box below as well. Most of the things that I cover here on YouTube are also available in written format on my blog website, and the description, the link to the blog is in the description box below. So I hope you've liked this video, and if you have any questions, particularly about living in Australia or moving to Australia, please put your questions in the comment box below. And if you have liked this video, please like, subscribe, and share with anyone that might be planning their big move. So that's it from me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. See you. Bye.